Hey everybody, today we are going to be discussing my favorite horror franchise, and I'm going to be ranking the movies from worst to best. And as we are now in October, what's a better time? And that is the Halloween franchise.
I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes.
Let's start with number 13, Halloween Ends. I don't have much to say about this movie. It's terrible. I appreciate what they were trying to do with the main character, have the inception of a serial killer, but that should have been the movie itself. Take Michael out of it. If you're going to relegate Michael to be a homeless person that does nothing except get pushed around, maybe kill a little bit, and just be this weirdo that sits in a sewer and does nothing, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
Do it.
Get up! The movie was confusing. There were a lot of themes they were trying to explore that never hit. There are people that do appreciate and like this movie, but I just don't see it. If you're going to promote this as a Halloween movie with Michael Myers, you better show Michael Myers as a force of nature as the force of nature as he is, not have some kid push him around and relegate him to the shadows. Everything felt shoehorned. I had some really good ideas about this movie in my own head that they should have went with. Ridiculous, I know. Maybe have it 10 years down the road. Maybe have it in a different town. Maybe have it somewhere where Michael just completely disappeared so everybody's on edge thinking he's going to come back each Halloween so they're prepared for it. Maybe have him just transcend into the boogeyman so he can't be killed and you have to survive Halloween every year because his ghost appears and you have to get through the night. I don't know. Anything. Have him appear at Christmas. Have him throw a bait and switch. Anything except what they gave us. If they were going for the more anthology look and have this movie stand on its own, if they were going for more of the anthology feel and have this movie be a movie on its own with its own story about the kid becoming the serial killer, that would have been fine. Instead, they shoehorned Michael, they shoehorned the last fight with Laurie in it and everything, and it just didn't work. The main kid, I forget his name, forgive me, it's probably going to be on the bottom of the screen here. The main kid, who's the serial killer, really even had no arc. He just wound up dying by Michael at the end, so what was the point of even him? This movie would have been infinitely better if that last scene with the funeral procession, with the Haddonfield residents standing around, with Michael finally dead, when Laurie drops him into the shredder, if he just grabbed her and pulled her right in with him, the movie would have been way better for me. But instead, we got Halloween Ends.
I'm just a man, and I always matters. What could you now?
Number 12, Halloween Resurrection. This movie's terrible. The only reason I maybe rewatch this movie is to laugh at how bad it is, and for some maybe nostalgic reasons that it takes place during the time of MTV Fear and, you know, the reality show and the scare stuff. I appreciate that, I guess, but you have Busta Rhymes kicking Michael Myers and karate chopping him, hitting him in the nuts, degrading him.
Looking a little crispy over there, Mikey. Like some chicken fried, motherfucker.
You also have Laurie Strode in this movie, who's in the beginning, she gets killed off in this weird asylum thing with Michael and the way he kills her and just the whole over-the-top dramatization of this and how they had to explain the ending of H2O where she chopped off his head and put it into this movie. Just a mess.
Hello, Michael.
It's just a stupid movie. It doesn't make any sense at the end of the day. I mean, they're in the original house. The mask is horrible. It's just not a good movie. So I'm now moving on from Halloween Resurrection. Number 11, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
You're like, cow! Cow!
I am not a fan of the Rob Zombie movies. I appreciate what he did, especially with the first one. This one went way off the chain. I don't know what happened. I think he was trying to do something new with Michael roaming the world, roaming the country, the apparitions, the visions of his mom, the white horse, all of that. I appreciate and I respect Rob Zombie for reaching for the stars and trying to do something completely unique, but it doesn't work. I mean, you have great performances by Brad Dourif, Danielle Harris. The violence is intense. The opening dream sequence in the hospital where it should have stayed just because it was awesome, and then you find out it's just a dream sequence, so you get taken out of that. It just doesn't work for me. Like I said, I appreciate some of the cinematography, the acting, but I rarely ever go back and watch this movie. Even if it's on TV, I'll put something else on.
Listen to me, Laurie. There's no one holding you down.
Number 10, Halloween 5.
All clear.
Nothing above, nothing below.
Oh, this movie is boring. And not only is it boring, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, they put the whole cult of Thorn in this. They added all this complexity to the old school simplicity of Michael Myers. Dr. Loomis is all weird and obsessive in this movie. Danielle Harris, Jamie Lloyd doesn't even talk. She's kind of just bugged out the entire time. The mask is atrocious. It's got this weird points in the hair. I don't even know what to make of it.
She's down here in the middle of the old house.
You have the horrifically annoying character of Tina, who for some reason had to replace Rachel from Halloween 4, because Rachel gets killed off right in the beginning, even though Rachel was a pretty good character from Halloween 4. It's just all over the place. One of the things I only remember is a Doberman Pinscher, I think. But like I said, and that scene where Michael is driving Tina around, he's got that weird, troll-like mask on. I thought that was kind of funny. But other than that, this movie is just left to be desired.
Tina, clean up room service. Mikey.
Number 9 is Rob Zombie's Halloween. So like I said, I don't love these movies, especially part 2. I appreciate part 1. I'm not a big fan of origin stories when it comes to icons or interesting, mysterious, horrific characters like Michael Myers. It takes away the mystery of it. If I want to know why Michael Myers is killing, then I'd watch a documentary about serial killers or a thriller about a serial killer. I don't want to know why Michael Myers is killing. I don't want Michael Myers to talk. I don't want to see a human face on Michael Myers. I don't want to know as a kid that he was a little shit. I don't want to know as a kid he tortured animals. It's just not interesting to me. But like I said, there's moments in this film that, I can appreciate Tyler Mane, the intensity of Michael Myers, the second half, which goes back to the harkens to the original movie, Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis, and some of the characters. I mean, you got Rob Zombie's wife, who is who she is. He's going to put her in every single movie. He's going to think that, she's Ellen Bernstein, and it is what it is. So I've accepted that reality. And the other thing I don't like about Rob Zombie's movies is his white trash, disgusting redneck talk all the time. The cursing, the hey, baby, fuck you. Just the weird lines. He puts it into every single movie, and for some reason, it just doesn't work. It's just off-putting for me. And it kind of takes the spotlight off the substance of the scene. And you're just like, all right, are they going to get over this conversation? I mean, the opening scene of this movie, when they're having breakfast, is just brutal.
Jesus Christ, Ronnie, you know I have to fucking work tonight. Somebody around here has got to make some money.
I'm all broken up here, bitch. I can't work.
Yeah, and whose fault is that?
Fuck
Oh
you.
my God, you're pathetic.
You know that new waitress over at the Bingo Lounge? She can give me the freaky eye.
Oh, the whore with the big tits hanging down to her knees?
Maybe I'll choke the chicken, purge my snorkel all over, and flap me.
So, like I said, I rarely rewatch this one. I appreciate it for all it is and what Rob Zombie tried to do. And, he loves the franchise, so I respect him for that. And, thank you for contributing.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Grizzly, bitch.
Number 8, David Gordon Green's Halloween 2018. I have a weird relationship with this movie. I'm not really a fan by any means, but I do love James Jude Courtney's interpretation of Michael Myers, so there are parts of this film that I really appreciate when it comes to him. But David Gordon Green is not a horror director. I was really never scared during this movie. Now, I don't expect to be scared during Michael Myers movies. I mean, the first one terrified me when I was little, and that movie is Creep Fest. But like I said, his shots, there's really no tension. They're very shaky, and that added with the writing with Danny McBride, and just the humor. It just did not feel like a Halloween movie. The dad and the peanut butter thing, it's just weird.
Hey, Dad.
What?
Can you stop?
I gotta clean this peanut butter off my hand.
So you have the juxtaposition of James Jude Courtney, who is an awesome Michael Myers and a great mask, to this just weak story of Laurie Strode and the podcasters, and then Dr. Sartain, and all this weird forced plot points to make what the story they wanted to tell work, right? And the weird thing about the Laurie Strode in these movies is she should almost be how the Laurie Strode in H2O was, right? So in Halloween 2018, it takes place after the first Halloween. So the only trauma Laurie has ever experienced was that initial movie, that night, which was horrible. But she is acting like she's been through decades of it, which is how the H2O Laurie should act, right? So if you switch those roles, it would make a little bit more sense for the H2O Laurie to be how the Laurie is in Halloween 2018, trauma from an event years ago, blah, 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 to the Laurie in H2O who had a brother trying to kill her for most of her life. So the trauma was a little too much and too heavy-handed for the Laurie in 2018 from what she encountered back in the 70s. It just didn't work for me. It would almost work if those two characters were switched, if you get what I'm saying. But like I said, there's moments in this movie I like. There's moments in the movie I loathe. The characters, the kids, they never feel real. They never feel grounded to their reality. And the way they portray Halloween night, even that iconic, Steadicam shot of Michael just going in each house to kill people, I appreciate it. But again, it's from his point of view, so you're not adding tension by wondering where is he going to come out of? And that kind of fell short for me. But the Halloween that they show is just way too much. I love movies that show a subdued Halloween, a pumpkin on a porch, a couple ghosts hanging from a porch, a couple kids trick-or-treating like The Exorcist, like the first Halloween. It was never in your face. It never superseded the story. And this movie was just like, whoa, Halloween festival, this is crazy. I don't know if it's like this. Maybe it is now, but when I grew up, kids went after school. They went a little bit into the night. You had some crazy streets. But it just seemed a little too intense, and it took away from the dread and the aura of that is Haddonfield.
Wait,
hang on. I don't have my stethoscope. I need it. I'm gonna get it. I'll be right back.
Number 7, Halloween Kills. Like I said, I'm not a biggest fan of both of these movies, but I put this one above Halloween 2018 just because James Jude Courtney is rampaging the entire annoying town of Haddonfield in this movie. Haddonfield. Which is awesome. It's metal Michael Myers getting revenge and destroying everybody from the fighters fight, which is ridiculous, a little over the top, to just him going from house to house, street to street, and just killing people and destroying the whole town at the end after you think he's dead. The movie's a mess. I mean, by all means, you have the crazy guy in the hospital scene, all these, mature themes the director's trying to explore. You have the, evil dies tonight, Laurie saying he transcends the more he kills, which doesn't even make sense, because if you're going with the whole the more he kills, the more he transcends route, then by definition, in Halloween Ends, he should have been the boogeyman at that point, indestructible. Instead, they went the completely opposite route, which made no sense. So, back to Halloween Kills. I appreciate the metal Myers. I appreciate the rampaging Myers. The John Carpenter score is exceptional. And that's probably one of the only reasons it's above 2018, other than Michael just rampaging the town. I appreciate David Gordon Green revisiting the 70s aesthetic and time period of this story. They do a really good job at that, but at the end of the day, it's just nostalgia bait to me. There's nothing new you're seeing except revisiting something that once was in hope of capturing the magic. It was really well done, but again, to me, it's kind of gimmicky. But again, both of these movies fall in the same line for me. They're okay. There's moments I appreciate. There's aspects I appreciate, but at the end of the day, meh.
Evil dies tonight!
Evil dies tonight!
All right, everybody, calm down.
Number 6, is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. So I ripped apart Halloween 5 earlier, which is the direct prequel to this movie. I didn't like The Cult of Thorn. The only reason that this movie is above all the other ones, I saw it in theaters when I was younger, so there is a nostalgic factor here. For some reason, this movie is more rewatchable than the other ones previously listed. Maybe Halloween Kills, maybe they're close, and the only reason this one goes ahead of it is because of nostalgia, I guess. Forgive me. But at the end of the day, this movie's okay. You know, you got a weird Paul Rudd doing his head movement. The mask is decent. It's probably the closest it's come to in the rest of the franchise, aside from David Gordon Green's version. It's a weird movie. The ending's really weird. There's, I think, a director's cut or a certain cut, deleted scenes. But it's very 90s. You have cool kills. You have the jerk getting killed in the basement with the electrical box. You have Michael with the hatchet behind the clothesline. And you just have an interesting take on Myers, and Haddonfield's really well shot, and the Halloween is really well done in this movie, and I love the wind and the way it's shot works for me. It's kind of disappointing that they killed off Danielle Harris so early, but the rest of the film, I guess, kind of works. Donald Pleasance is even in this for a little while as Dr. Loomis, so you have that added factor to it. Can't go wrong with that. His presence in this movie is really small. He's serviceable. You know, he was real old when this movie was shot, and I think he wasn't doing well health-wise, so you got that out of him. They really hit you hard in this movie, especially at the end with the Cult of Thorn thing and how Myers is really just a robotic vessel for their goals and their mission in life, and it brings back the Doctor from the first movie, and it's just a muddled mess. But overall, a solid entry. Now we are in the top 5. And number 5 is Halloween H2O. This movie has grown on me. When I first saw it in theaters years ago, I was like, this doesn't feel like a Halloween movie. This feels like more of a WB produced, teenage angst, Buffy the Vampire Slayer Halloween. But it's grown on me, and I wouldn't say it's because of the newer movies. Well, maybe. But I also appreciate that time period of my life. So there is a heavy nostalgic aspect to this. But looking back, it's a well-done movie. It's short. There's a lot of brevity in it. It's not that intense. It kind of happens and it ends. You have Jamie Lee Curtis returning as Laurie Strode, who puts in a strong turn as a woman who has a new identity, who's hiding from her brother, and who's basically started a new life in California as a college professor.
Of all the days for you to pull this shit, what do you think you can do? Just wander around town?
I appreciate the California setting. That was new at the time. And it does capture Halloween pretty well. You have Janet Leigh with an interesting cameo. You have Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams. A pretty good cast. That kid, I think, from Jumanji, who has a weird death. So it works in that sense. It's nothing to write home about. It isn't this great movie. It isn't this terrible movie. But it's a good, solid, enjoyable Halloween entry. I was never scared. I think the mask is really bad. You see the guy's eyes the entire time through the mask, and you're just like, I don't want to see eyes. I want dark voids. I think the CGI mask has a cameo in this movie. There might be 3 masks in this movie. You have the opening, which I think is a blonde or pink mask. I'll double check that. But you have that really cool opening with the original nurse from part 1 who shows up again in Halloween Kills. But you have Haddonfield be the opening intro and the cool music playing as the camera dollies up, and some interesting things that happen in the house where the nurse gets killed, and when Michael, I guess, finds out where Laurie moved to or whatever. The tapes of Loomis, I think, are there. Or his writings or whatever. So there's some cool tie-ins, some cool Easter eggs. Fun moments. Halloween is captured really well. And like I said, it's a fun, quick, enjoyable Halloween entry. All right, number 4 is Halloween 2. I love this movie. I think it's an awesome sequel to part 1. It still has a similar feel that John Carpenter tapped into in the first movie. The hospital setting's awesome. You have Michael in this movie who is a little left to be desired. He's very robotic, very stiff, very machine-like. He's played by Dick Warlock, who is actually a stuntman who was one of the robot killers from Halloween 3. Not really his fault, I guess. He was trying to do something new, or maybe it was the direction of it. It's the same mask from the first one, but it aged a lot. It was under the producer's bed, so it did have a little bit of a weird look to it. It was a little too stretched over Dick Warlock's face as opposed to Nick Castle from the first movie, where it fit almost perfectly. It had the dark eyes. The mask was sitting on the head. It just was a little weird in part 2. I love the 70s aspect of part 2. Like I said, it feels like the Carpenter movie somewhat. The music's really cool. The hospital setting's cool. The opening credits with the skull is awesome. You have Laurie Strode, who's not really in the background, but she's kind of there, but she's in the hospital in the bed most of the movie. You have Loomis on the hunt. I love Donald Pleasant. He makes everything better, so you have that aspect to it.
He's dead. I saw him.
I saw a man in a mask.
It was him.
I want to believe you, but I gotta be sure. I can't stop until I'm certain it's dead.
So overall, Halloween 2, awesome entry, good score, nice update from the first movie without going too far off the chain. So it works overall, except Michael is kind of a little weird and a little stiff. Number 3, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. I really like this movie. I think it's well done. Rachel's a great lead. You have the introduction of Danielle Harris as Jamie Lloyd. She does a really good job. It's a nice, fresh take on the franchise. You weren't just going back to Laurie Strode. You were now introducing, this little girl who does have a connection, but they tie that up in the beginning. It's in Haddonfield. I think this was filmed in Salt Lake City, so it does have a different feel, but it also has a similar feel. Halloween is very subdued. You got, kids trick-or-treating, but it's not over the top. The decorations aren't over the top. There's just a nice vibe in this movie, a great Halloween vibe, a great October vibe. The opening credits are really cool. They're different than the pumpkin, but they still work. It's just a good, fun, it's not that scary Halloween movie.
Reverend Jackson P. Sayer of Dumont County. Pleased to make your acquaintance.
How far are you going, Mr. Sayer?
God's country, promised land. Where you heading, Mr.
Loomis. Haddonfield.
As far as Michael goes, you got the shoulder pads, you got a weird mask, but the guy didn't do a bad job as Michael Myers. He still is a force to be reckoned with. There's some good kills. Killing Brady on the stairwell was really well done. Kind of harkens back to how the boyfriend's killed in Halloween Kills, although Halloween Kills is really harkening back to this one. But it's just overall a good Halloween entry. Again, you have Sam Loomis, Donald Pleasance in it. That adds everything. He's on a mission in this movie. There's some action in the beginning. You have the bandages Michael Myers wearing in the beginning. You have the underground jail cell where they take him out and he escapes on the ambulance. And that was a really cool scene, the way he puts his hand in the guy's forehead. So Michael is really strong and really intense in this movie, but the mask is a little weak. The shoulder pads and the stature and the way Michael moves is a little weak. But again, you have things that lift this movie up, the Halloween vibes, Jamie Lloyd, Donald Pleasance, and the overall story works. And like I said, Rachel is a good final girl to lead this movie. And of course, let's not forget the epic ending, the little twist they threw in there where Jamie turns out to be evil and she's dressed up in the clown suit with bloody scissors and Dr. Loomis's epic freak out.
No! No! No!
So again, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, number 3.
What are you, deaf? Don't try that Halloween shit with me.
And that brings us to our top 2. And number 2 is going to be a little controversial, but I think this movie's gotten more love as the years go on. And once I saw this back in the day, I loved this movie. And that is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Hey! John Carpenter had originally planned that Halloween would have been an anthology, meaning each year a new movie would come out that takes place around Halloween time, and this is an example of what they would have done. This movie has nothing to do with Michael Myers except for a cameo of someone watching the the screen at the end, but it does tell the story of a doctor who basically gets caught up in this whole sequence where he uncovers this conspiracy going on of this Irish witch warlock who's running a company that is creating masks that are going to kill children and basically cause a mass sacrifice, and he's going to take over the world, more or less. It's a very deep, dark plot, but it works on so many levels. And I will say this is the most Halloween-y out of all the Halloween movies. In the imagery, the way the colors, the way it's shot, it does have that Carpenter feel. It does have a great synth score. And it's such a unique story that takes place around Halloween. This movie got so much hate before I even saw it when I was young. I didn't even bother to see it. And then when I was old enough to be like, you know what, I'm going to check this out. I watched it and I loved it. Me and my buddies loved this movie. Tom Atkins, classic actor from back in that day, plays the main doctor. He's just a dude that finds interest in this girl and kind of just takes him into this, world that he gets caught up into, that he eventually tries to put a stop to. You have an evil villain of Conal Cochran, who's the leader, the Irish witch that I was talking about, who's awesome as this character. I mean, it's so unique. You have the Halloween aspect of this all, but then you have the silver shamrock logo, so it's almost this unique St. Patrick's Day Halloween fusion, but it's definitely more Halloween, obviously, but it works. There's nothing off about it. You're just like, yeah, that's kind of cool, man. That's interesting. Some of the effects are really cool. The way, they're dated to this day, but they still work. The way the kid's head turns into insects when it melts, the way the laser shoots the lady's face off.
What's that?
Who cares?
The way things blow up at the end, the way Conal Cochran turns and just disappears after he's killed. It just works on every level. And the end is very depressing. I mean, it's kind of ambiguous, but you don't necessarily know if things were saved. The way he's just on the phone and he's telling the TV network to turn it off, and he's screaming and it just cuts. Fantastic movie from beginning to end. I love it. I watch this every year. And like I said, what really sticks out to me in this film is the iconic synth score and that 80s vibe and that Carpenter's vibe that just comes throughout the movie and just permeates. It's palpable. So I love Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
The world's going to change tonight, Doctor. I'm glad you'll be able to watch it. And happy Halloween.
Here we are at number 1. It's no surprise. I'm sure this is number 1 on many people's lists, and that is John Carpenter's Halloween 1978.
See ya. Bye. Bye.
I already did a full video on this last year, so I'm only going to touch on this a little bit, but this is a masterpiece. This is one of the best horror movies ever made. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It is a clinic in tension, in suspense, in terror, in creep, in you name it. Every note was hit on this movie, from John Carpenter's direction to the acting, to the writing, to the music from John Carpenter, to the portrayal of Michael Myers, to the grounding of the characters, to the realism it felt, to the subdued aspect of Halloween, the fact that this was shot in the summer and they had to put leaves out. Fun note, Robert Englund, aka Freddy Krueger, was an intern on this movie, and he was tasked with just spreading leaves on the streets. Cool little Easter egg trivia for you. But anyways, back to this masterpiece. There's not one shortcoming of this movie. Is there aspects that are a little dated? Sure. Are the kills brutal in today's standards? No. But do they work? Of course they work. It's Michael Myers. It's Halloween 1978. From him putting on the ghost costume with the glasses, to him emerging from the shadows while he chases Laurie, to the tension of Laurie trying to get out of the house as Michael descends the stairs, or when she tries to get out of the kitchen and he's approaching her, from him chasing her across the street, from when he kills Annie, from when he's lurking, from when he's stalking, from when he's observing. Everything about this movie works. One scene I think that sticks out to me especially, and it's very small, is when the girls are walking home from school and he's following her in the station wagon and Annie yells out,
Hey, jerk! Speed kills!
it just adds this sense of dread, like, man, you are messing with the wrong guy. And it's simple. There's no sister storyline. There's no, backstory line. You just have a group of kids who feel like they're kids in the 70s, and they happen to cross the wrong man who was a mental patient who had escaped, and now he's home, and now he's just looking to kill some people. And it happens to be them. Jamie Lee Curtis rocks this movie. All the characters rock this movie. Donald Pleasance is basically the main character as much as Laurie Strode to me. He's awesome. It just is a perfect movie. The ending's incredible. The way the piano hits once he's not on the ground, it just works. And the fine line of Michael being supernatural and human is fantastic. In any other movie, if you had a character that you were portraying as a serial killer who escaped an insane asylum, and then a couple scenes later he vanishes when someone blinks, you'd be like, what is this going on? But we never question it because it just works. It's creepy, it's unsettling, and that's John Carpenter's direction. So this movie is head and shoulders above any other movie on this list. It's not even close. And I like it that way, and that's the way it's probably going to be, bar a miracle. But that's not going to happen because this was new when it came out. Nobody had seen Halloween before. So any movie that comes out going forward can be really good, but it's never going to recapture that initial charm, that initial terror, terror, talk about juxtaposition, that initial wow factor that the original movie caught. And it is timeless, and it will be timeless for generations to come. Thank you, John Carpenter.
I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us.